Well, with our familiar theme song, ladies and gentlemen, it is time once again to go out to the other coast of America and talk with Michael Snyder about the movies. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and greetings, world at large. And yep, it's time for a little culture blast from the West Coast, and we'll talk about some new films starting right now.
All right.
With King Arthur. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Sounds kind of robust and medieval, but in fact, this is the latest film to be directed by British filmmaker Guy Ritchie, who has had a checkered career, to say the least. Loved his British gangster films, the ones that kicked off that career, especially Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And then he got involved with Madonna, and suddenly his filmmaking career went into a tailspin as she sort of wedged herself into at least one bomb, a remake of Swept Away. But he's bounced back with a couple of Batman as Sherlock Holmes movies starring the great Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. So I guess he feels invincible because he got the idea of doing the Arthurian legend, you know, back in the day, you know, swords and peasants and what have you, only done gangster style. So, yeah, I know, it's kind of crazy. Charlie Hunnam of Sons of Anarchy and Pacific Rim and what have you plays young Arthur, and this guy who would be king was ripped from the bosom of his family when his uncle killed his dad and took over the throne. And now Art is out there amongst the boys, gathering up his troops and what have you, and he's going to bring down his vile uncle, played by Jude Law. So Jude Law feels comfortable about working with Guy Ritchie. In any event, you know, it's swords for sure. There's a stone that Arthur has to pull a sword out of. There's a lady of the lake and mages and as I said, peasants. But the Gunsels don't have gats. They do have swords and knives. And there's all this modern cadence and slang and action and mud and murk and weird baloney going on. And it just gets to you after a while. You know, the first time you hear, "Oi, what are you doing with that pig sticker, Arthur?" You know, it just does not really work for me. Again, the cast is pretty solid, and the supporting players include Jimon Hunsu and Aidan Gillen as a couple of Art's boys, and you have Eric Bana, and again Jude Law. But man, it did not work. Maybe the next Sherlock movie that this guy does will redeem him, but I thought that King Arthur: Legend of the Sword was hardly legendary. Snatched brings Goldie Hawn back to the big screen, and let me tell you something, she's aged well. She still has the great comic timing, but here she plays Amy Schumer's overly protective mom as the two end up stuck on a vacation trip to, I believe, Ecuador that goes horribly wrong, as in kidnap for ransom wrong. The situation is this. No one wants to go with the obnoxious character played by Amy on this getaway, so rather than waste the ticket, she offers it to her housebound mom, who turns out to be more than a match for the Latin American gang members who target the women. Again, some interesting supporting players here. You know, Amy Schumer, love her sketch comedy. Pretty solid stand-up at times, but I've never been impressed with her, particularly in a lead role in a film, despite the success of what she's done so far. Again, supporting players in this thing include Joan Cusack and Wanda Sykes as a sort of snarky couple, Christopher Maloney as a guy in the Amazon, a sort of adventurer type, and making my skin crawl, and not in a good way, Ike Barinholtz as the Amy Schumer character's brother, the needy son of Goldie Hawn's single mom. You know, directed by Jonathan Levine, written by a woman, Katie Dippold, just not funny. Very, very tired situations. Shockingly violent at times, by the way. I don't think Snatched works at all, and I would kind of avoid it if I could. The best film of the ones we've discussed so far is The Wall, which is a tight, taut, tense, all the same thing, I guess, an exciting movie, and the latest from director Doug Liman, who went from directing Swingers, which gave, I guess, Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau their first big platform, to the Bourne movies. And that's a pretty wide breadth of styles. And here he takes a very simple premise and two actors, one who is quite good, and makes a very relevant and at the same time timeless thriller about a soldier under the worst kind of pressure. He's pinned down in the middle of the Iraqi desert war zone by a Haji sniper who has him in the crosshairs and also eventually has him on walkie-talkie. The guy who is pinned down is British actor Aaron Taylor Johnson, and he's unrecognizable as the U.S. GI. This is the guy who played the young John Lennon in Nowhere Boy, the title character in Kick-Ass, Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. You won't recognize him, and he's fantastic in The Wall. And his compadre, who isn't so much in the action, is played by John Cena, who just has to be his hunky fellow soldier. Not a big stretch there. But I have to tell you, The Wall worked big time for me. It was, nail-biting, exciting, disturbing, and at the same time, again, thought-provoking and relevant considering the setting. So big thumbs up for The Wall. Okay, what else do we have in store? How about Paris Can Wait? Well, this is one I could wait for. Eleanor Coppola, that's right, Mrs. Francis Ford Coppola, I don't know whether they're together or not, the woman who made the pretty great documentary about Apocalypse Now, Parts of Darkness, does a rom-com, and it stars Diane Lane and Alec Baldwin, and I think, oh, Paris Can Wait, this sounds like fun, and in fact, they play a couple who have had problems, and they are in Cannes for the festival. He's sort of a driven movie producer type, who has left his wife, Diane Lane's character, dissatisfied, and has to split up with her just for a couple of days and then connect with her in Paris. So he suggests that his friend, a French producer type, give her a lift via automobile from Cannes to Paris. And, suddenly they're on the road, and it's the beautiful south of France, and you're having a great time, but the movie is sort of flat. And it doesn't matter that you like Diane Lane. It doesn't matter that her cohort, played by the French actor Arnaud Viard, is a charming fellow of sorts. He comes off kind of obnoxious, and it's not that much fun. I wished it would have been better. I love the idea of traveling through the south of France. I love Diane Lane. Baldwin is hardly even in the thing as the husband. He just bookends the trip. And, of course, romantic hijinks may or may not ensue with the husband's pal, Jacques, and with the wife. Maybe watch it on TV when it gets to cable. I wouldn't. I could wait for Paris Can Wait and keep waiting and not ever get there. Let's wrap things up with Stefan Zweig, Farewell to Europe, a very fascinating film, a docudrama about a guy I didn't know anything about. Stefan Zweig, who was apparently one of the most well-read German language writers of his time, as in he was literate and everybody read his books. And the time was the mid-20th century. The guy was a German Jewish intellectual, and he got out of Nazi Germany before things got a little too hot. And he moved to the other side of the world, lived in Buenos Aires, in Brazil, and in New York. And this movie is about his experiences away from Germany as he wrestles with how he can best speak out about what's going on in his home country and longs for it, but has to find a place here in the New World, either in South America or North America. And again, I knew nothing about this guy, so it was sort of an education, but the movie's pretty fascinating, written and, co-written and directed by the actress Maria Schrader, a German actress, and Zweig is played by a German actor named Joseph Hader. His wife is played by a renowned German actress named Barbara Sukawa, who's been in Fassbender films and such. I thought it's, yes, subtitles, and it's a little dry, but I thought it was very well done, and I walked away from this movie knowing more about a guy that deserved my attention than I had known about it prior to watching the film. That's about it in terms of new movies, although I do want to mention in passing a movie that's opening in New York and L.A., Manifesto, and is a tour de force for Cate Blanchett, who plays 13 different characters in what is basically a movie about the 20th century art scene and just a variety of really distinct and different personas, and each one beautifully captured. It's an unlikely film to recommend. I don't know that it's going to be everyone's cup of tea. It's pretty cerebral, but Manifesto is just impressive. Cate Blanchett is one of the great actors out there. Directed and written by Julian Roosevelt. And again, maybe not to everyone's taste, but I was riveted by it. That's about it. What do you got in TV or other movies, buddy?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No, I went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2 last week. Loved it. Found it just, good couple hours of fun,
Full entertainment, right. Did you watch it in 2D or 3D?
3D. Always good. And always 3D. Come on.
Did you hit the IMAX?
No, I hate IMAX.
Man, the only way to see 3D is in IMAX, but that's an argument for another time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. We'll wrap things up. You can check me out on Twitter at Culture Blaster or on Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page over on Facebook, and I'm looking forward to coming back next week with more film reviews and such.
And we'll see you then. Also, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. There's more GABNet coming right up.